Hey guys, it's TRIZE here, back with Automation, the car company Tycoon game and the most powerful engine series. We're going to be building the most powerful Inline 4 in version 4.2. This game recently had another big update, which is version 4.2.6. Well, with this new update, it adds more options to turbochargers, and finally, they got racing exhaust headers for turbo engines. So right now, let's not wait any longer and get this 4-banger going. So the first thing you gotta do on the top up portion of your screen is you set the year, max this out to the year of 2020 to get the most out of the engine. And after choosing the Inline 4 configuration, you may choose any block material that you could choose from. I'm doing magnesium for the sake of weight and everything. And for the bore and stroke, as you see here, you max this out, square it out to 120 millimeters each to get the engine size to 5,429 cubic centimeters, or around 5.4 liters. With a dual overhead cam 5-valve made out of aluminum silicone, and again, just to reduce weight as possible. And for this quality slider, as you see right here, you set this up to a plus 15 for everything, whether if it's for the engine in general, the top end, bottom end, turbocharger, for everything, just to get the most performance as possible. For the balance shaft, you are required to have a balance shaft. If not, then engine goes kapooey and it won't run whatsoever. For the crankshaft, it's got to be made of the strongest ones as possible, so build steel crankshaft, lightweight titanium cowl rods, and regular forged pistons. For the compression, just like my other builds, you set this to a 15.0 to 1 ratio. The cam profile set up to a fairly high amount to a 74, and the springs and lifters just down by 3 clicks down to a 47, and of course, like my other builds, VVT at all cams. For the turbocharger, of course, single turbo because we're restricted to a single turbo, but we're going to be using a smart boost system with the intercooler maxed out to 12,100 horsepower. My god, it's huge. And for the new aspiration setting, we're going to be using the twin scroll setting with a ball bearing, with the compressor maxed out to 120 millimeters, the turbine set to 108.6 millimeters, the trim maxes out to 100, and the max boost set to a 37.7 psi. For the fuel system, I don't really need to explain this, so we're going to be using a direct injection throttle per cylinder race intake running on the recently implemented DevMeth fuel, with the fuel mixture set to an 11.8, the ignition timing set all the way up to 100, and a max RPM set quite high to a 7,400 RPM. And last but not least, with the exhaust and everything, so as you see here, we got ourselves some new headers, which is the turbo race headers, which we're going to be using, and we're restricted to a single exhaust, but we set the max diameter for the exhaust at 190 millimeters, which equals to 7.5 inches. And of course, no cats, no buffers, bring that quality up. And we get the final horsepower rating of 2,433.9 horsepower at 7,400 RPM, the torque at 1,805.2 pounds-feet of torque at 6,500 RPM. And as we can see here with the engine in general, no knocking, no valve full, but some considerable amount of RPM and torque stress with this engine. As we can see, the pistons is at 84% reliability issues. If we were to go one click up to 7,500 RPM, then boom, the engine will not run whatsoever. And briefly, since this is a new version of this game, let me briefly go over the Inline 3 engine, the updated version for this version of the game. And after that, I'll give you here of the Inline 4 engine, so get you to the Inline 3 right now. So compare the difference between the version 1 and this version 2 of the Inline 3. The size, headers, everything is all the same, including the top end, but for the bottom end, looks like this is all the same here. Yes, this is also the same for the bottom end, but this is the turbocharger. Instead of a variable geometry setup, I put a standard geometry because, well, a twin scroll and variable geometry, turbo goes nuke, and the engine won't run whatsoever. And I did edit the trim from an 84 to 100, and the max PSI lowered this down by a couple clicks from a 46.4 PSI down to a 43.5 PSI. And for the fuel system, same thing there, exhaust. Now that we got the racing headers, I put these on right here as so. And we get the final horsepower rating of 1,878.6 horsepower, 8,400 RPM, and the torque at 1,187.3 pounds-feet of torque at 8,200 RPM. It's deeply unreliable, it still runs, but it's not as practical, but you can go fast this engine, but whatever. So back with the Inline 4 engine, and for the sake of time constraints and everything, I'm going to give you a rev with this engine right here with this graph and the power torque graph, and after doing so, I'll show you the engine as is and do some fake gear shifts down here for about like maybe 40 seconds roughly, and we'll end up the video right there. So right now, bring back the graphs and give you here of this engine right now. Dude, the frickin' racing headers right here were like white ass hot. They were a little bit ago, but now they're like yellow white hot. I mean, if you touch that, you're gonna lose that hand. Guarantee you that. So that'll do it with Automation, the car company Tycoon game with this powerful Inline 4 engine. These racing headers finally gives out more power than before. It's been a long time in the making for this to be implemented, and I'm happy about it. Now, you could have a less restrictive header when making an engine like this, or you could just make a run-of-the-mill turbo engine and put these racing headers on and you'll be good right then and there. So you can make much more power compared to a short cast header or a cast log turbo header compared to this here racing header. And for those who are interested in this type of content, please be sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any videos like this in the future, including my automation to BeamNG Drive videos too. So this is TRIZE rising up and signing out.